Exactly. So, as you might know, and I hope you know, Dr. Petra Kuenkel, she is not only the executive director and the co-founder of the Collective Leadership Institute, which was founded in 2005 already. Yeah, so we are celebrating 16 years. She's also the member of the executive committee at the International Club of Rome, where she's also co-responsible for the strategy development of Emerging New Civilization Initiative, and where she also published the report to the Club of Rome, Stewarding Sustainability Transformations. She's also a member of the German chapter of the Club of Rome, and she is also a senior associate at the Taos Institute in the US. And there she was appointed on the basis of outstanding conceptual work in social constructivist transformations research. So I think we have currently created the best conditions to learn about transformation literacy, and what is actually the connection between collective leadership and transformation literacy. So Petra, please, can you give us an insight or share your findings with us so that we better can connect these concepts?
Thank you, Alina. And with this very formal introduction of Petra from Germany, I would like to start with more the human side. And the human side is that I've spent a few days on an island end of August, and it was a very small island owned by a Swedish colleague from the Club of Rome. And I spent it there with a number of really brilliant thinkers, and some people you may know, some of you probably have heard about the planetary boundaries, and a term that goes back to Johan Rockström. He was also there, and some other people on the island. And you know what? It was really very human, because even the great thinkers and drivers of transformations of this world are very human. So we needed to get there. We went for a walk, we went for a meditative walk, and we had a wonderful food. And it was the first time after 2 years that we saw each other in person. Believe it or not, we had check-ins and check-outs. So I'm saying this, and I wanted to start with a story because I do think it is, no matter at what level we work, it is really about being human. It's about the human connection, and it is about the aspiration that we have. Nevertheless, what I would like to highlight today is inspired from this just a few days on the island. Inspired because I do think that what I found, let's say the one thing that I found really both inspiring as well as, let's say, concerning for me, was to sit among people who really say the speed of transformation needs to accelerate. We need to be much faster. So I'm certainly, and most of you know me, not a person who is like afraid of the future, but to really feel this situation when people who know, people who have done a lot of research say, guys, we need to be much faster. And so that much faster, of course, has always interested me in developing the collective leadership compass, in developing the dialogic change model. But we also know, and we teach, transformations are slow. So what are we going to do, in terms of speeding up transformations, and at the same time following the way that we know that transformations sometimes need to be slow in order to be sustainable. So I thought I'd just give an idea of the connection that I see between collective leadership, between collaboration, and the idea of what I call transformation literacy. So let's have a look at the, okay, so I hope you can see it all. So it's really a reminder. Let us remind ourselves, collective leadership is the capacity of a collective of actors, could be decision makers, could be change makers, could be people in networks, etc., of people in collaboration ecosystems, to deliver their contribution to something that creates aliveness among people and between people and nature. And they do this collaboratively. And this is always something that should change things. So it is about a common purpose. It's about things getting better. So just as a reminder of collective leadership, and yet at the same time, it's quite interesting to see some of the people on the island were part of the Global Commons Alliance. And the Global Commons Alliance is a conglomeration, a cooperation between high-level scientists all around the world. And they recently, I think that was even in August this year, did a global survey with lots of questions, and Ursula is going to put the link in the chat, so that you can download the survey. But what is so interesting is that so many people in the world obviously already know that we really need to transform much, much faster than before. And so many people are aware that this is also only possible with a very, very strong collaboration between institutions, between actors, between initiatives, between nations, etc. And what is almost a bit embarrassing, if you look at this graph, is that the most aware people are not living in Europe. So that's quite an interesting outcome of the survey, which I think there is a lot to learn from that, and there is a lot to really join in. Now, where this connects to collective leadership and to your role as specialists is that what is so absolutely clear is that small collaboration systems that work well are the backbone of what actually needs to happen in the world. So it's really like this very, very complex transformative task is almost too complex. It's almost frightening. So when we were sitting on the island, it was really like, how are we going to support this? But I always kind of argued and said, it is already happening. The paradigm shift has happened. There is so much going on in terms of doing things differently, about overcoming silo approaches, about taking collective responsibility, about doing collaboration. So it's really these different collaboration ecosystems, when they work well, and this is about CLI's methodology, then these collaboration ecosystems actually become building blocks of transformations. So that, I think, is really, really absolutely encouraging. So what is clear is that the ability to collaborate, the ability to lead collectively is a pathway into what we call transformation literacy. So it means that these transformations can only happen when different collaborative initiatives do not compete with each other or do not act in ignorance of each other, but actually come together and say, we're all part of a big system. You do this, you do this, you do that, but really need to take it one level up and need to become part of a transformation system around issues like biodiversity, climate, around ocean, around forestry, around social issues, around arts and culture, around vocational education, around health, etc. So in that way, I just would like to alert you that there is a bit of a trend, that it's important to become aware of. I think a while ago, almost like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen today, even today there are silo approaches, but I think a while ago, it was typical to have, no matter if it was that was in development cooperation or in typical government implementation or in typical corporate implementation, there were targeted, isolated actions, and usually in competition or sometimes ignorance of each other. But this has moved, and particularly also with the advent of the Sustainable Development Goals and the goal number 17, with the partnerships, into complex collaborations around sustainable value chains, around sustainable forestry, around better health, around collaboration in vocational training, around biodiversity, around ecosystems, around city development, and I almost want to say today I'm not saying this is mainstream, but I think that we need to collaborate and that things are interconnected is now, I think, known to almost, let's say, at least most of the change makers. So the issue is now that in the last couple of years, more and more people actually talk about transformation networks, like networks of people that come together between different institutions that are bringing together different collaborative initiatives. So this is really moving in the right direction, because here it is about looking at alliances that could be regional alliances, global alliances, and it's really, competition is over. It's really about how do we work together in a larger context, because we may have different sub-goals, but the overall goal of sustainability transformations in the various aspects this term has is the same goal, and we need to actually collaborate. And I can see this even in the northern part of Germany, where I'm living in a countryside that probably southern Germany would call backward, but there are so many initiatives, and it's really about bringing them together in networks. So what is quite interesting is that when we look a little bit into the future, we really need to talk about transformation systems, and we need to introduce the term that is emerging now. That's the term collective stewardship, because it is really about large systems. And that was going back to the island. This was the topic. How can we, while so many people are doing so many good stuff, how can we connect this really good stuff and become and learn to be aware that we are operating in a transformation system, that we are complementary aligned actors, and that we need to adopt a collective stewardship approach. So I think that's the future, and as it is with many other smaller collaboration ecosystems, we need to learn how to do this. So what I think is so important is to understand that we need to move from collaboration literacy to what I call transformational literacy. This is multiple actors and multiple kind of institution systems, and then really be able to collectively steward. And if you look at issues like the educational sector of an entire country, or the energy transition towards renewable energies in an entire continent, this is what we will be dealing with in future. So what is important in terms of the collective leadership specialist skills is the skill that we are conveying, that probably also other institutions, other people are conveying, is the cornerstone of this big transformative change. It's almost the laboratory of the future. It's the skill development that we need in order to be able to tackle these really big shifts that lie in front of us. So in that way, it is important to say, oh yeah, even for the big transformation processes, the dialogic change model works, because even for the big change models, and even if it needs to go fast, we need exploring and engaging, we need building and formalizing, we need implementing and evaluating, and we need sustaining and expanding the impact. So what I found fascinating is that, yes, it does work even for large scale change processes. And what is so interesting is that the elements of the compass can actually be translated in big strategic change guidance, in what we call transformation enablers or strategic drivers of change, where we look at narratives and how they inspire actors. In terms of, if you think about, for example, at the moment, sometimes people call it race to zero, but that kind of like zero environmental impact strategy, etc. These are narratives, and these narratives need to be the cornerstone of transformative efforts. And looking at in strategic drivers, what are structures that actually enable transformative change, or maybe block transformative change, and how can we actually bring dynamic into structures so that the bureaucracies are not blocking us from the transformative change we need. And in innovation, and Julia, you have been mentioning this, this is really how to bring the what I call the innovation that actually take place at the fringes of our societies, how to bring them together in order to amplify them. And it's really about if we look at humanity, we look at awareness, and in the awareness, we need to look at what are the metrics that really help us speed up transformative processes, because the metrics that we have, particularly the societal metric of gross domestic product, is not going to get us into the future. So there are really big changes needed. And then again, the collective intelligence dimension can be translated into what are the governance and consultation and dialogue structures that we need. And so that may be different in different countries and for different issues, but they are extremely important. And in terms of wholeness, the view is always towards what are the guiding regulations, because we need to look at the planetary boundaries. We need to operate in these kind of limits of the planet. And so this means that we need to agree on certain issues that may be ecocide laws, or that may be human rights, these are extremely important issues. So if you want to have a look a little bit deeper into this, I think Ursula is going to look into to put the new book, the Club of Rome report, into the chat. And there's also an article for free download. But what I would like to alert you to is that we also, as CLI, take a little step in that direction. And you're all specialists, but if you're interested to take one little more step, there is a new course coming up, and it is really about transformative change. And that is not maybe the biggest of all the biggest transformation, but it's just kind of that one level up, and looking at how do I develop collectively theories of change that become really absolutely impactful, because where we need to move it is really to adopt an attitude of collective stewardship. And collective leadership, as you can imagine, is a building block of being able to really live an attitude of collective stewardship. Okay, I leave it here. I thank you. I hope I was short enough, Dominic. And yep, if there are any questions, then I hand over to Alina.